Hello, I'm Sophie Rayworth. Welcome to your election headlines with one story dominating. The BBC has learned that the Conservatives' director of campaigning is being looked into over allegations about betting on the date of the general election. Tony Lee is married to a Tory candidate, Laura Saunders, who is also the subject of inquiries by the Gambling Commission. Here's the political reaction.
It's quite properly being investigated now. How does it look? Well, as I say, you and others looking at this will, I'm sure, be doing much more than just raising an eyebrow.
If it was one of my candidates, they'd be gone and their feet would not have touched the floor. There's a wider point here that you touch on, which is we've now had 14 years of chaos, of division, of politics being about self-entitlement. And politics needs to be about service, about public service.
We think there should be a Cabinet Office inquiry. I think the Gambling Commission will rightly look at this, and I hope they come down heavy on those people.
Time now for two manifesto launches. First, the Scottish Greens. They're pledging to introduce a wealth tax on the richest people in the UK, an end to oil and gas companies being able to advertise, and a stop on all subsidies for fossil fuels. The Cross Community Alliance Party launched its manifesto in Belfast. It's contesting all 18 seats in Northern Ireland. Alliance is pushing for reform of the devolved government, including changing how the Assembly votes on contentious issues. And if you want to see how the parties are faring in the polls, we have a dedicated poll tracker on our website. Head to bbc.co.uk/poll tracker for all you need to know. Those are your election headlines for Thursday, June the 20th.
A brand new Fox News poll shows President Biden leading in the presidential race for the first time since October. And it comes just as Biden is set to leave for Camp David and begin his prep for next week's CNN presidential debate. Kaylee McGee-White is the editor of Restoring America at the Washington Examiner and a Steamboat Institute Blakely Fellow, and she joins me now. Kaylee, should Trump be worried by those numbers?
I don't think so. He's gained a lot of ground over the past few months, and sure, they're going to go back and forth over the next few months, but this debate is a huge opportunity for him to solidify his recent gains and really gain some more ground over Biden. We all know that Biden is going to struggle in this debate, and the only question is how much.
And we do need to remember, this is an overall number. It doesn't necessarily focus on the swing states. And quite frankly, those 7 states that are in purple right now are all that really matter. Now, while Biden is hunkered down prepping, like you mentioned, it's not like Trump is sitting here drinking milkshakes. He's prepping as well. What advice would you give to Donald J. Trump as he preps for this debate?
I think the advice is twofold. The first is let Biden talk. Everyone has their own suspicions about Biden's mental capacity at this point. Let Biden confirm those suspicions. And we all know that he will, especially if he's expected to think on his feet, to give lengthy policy answers, and to rebut Trump's points. And the second thing is that when Trump does talk, he should focus specifically on policy. One of the mistakes that he made back in 2020 when he debated Biden was he got too personal, he rambled on at length, and he continued to interrupt. Now, we know that that last point is not going to be as big of a concern this time around because the rules are different. But if Trump remains focused on the policy, he's going to appeal more directly to the swing voters. I think about my own generation of young voters. The latest New York Times poll shows that Biden is up by just 2 points among Gen Z voters. There is a huge opportunity here for Trump to appeal to them on the grounds of policy.
Let's head more into the Ute vote, to borrow from Joe Pesci. The new Fox News poll shows voters under 30 years old favor Biden over Trump by 8 points, a little bit different than the New York Times. Of course, you're talking about Gen Z. This is under 30 in general. But back in 2020, our Fox News voter analysis found Biden won that group by 25 points. So you can see, if you compare these two, Trump is really chipping away at Biden. So do you expect Trump to further chip away at Biden's lead with the young people, especially, Kaylee, to your point, if he focuses on the policy a week from today?
I do, and it all comes back down to the issues. If you break down these polls, when young voters are asked specifically about the issues that they care about and which candidate best aligns with their positions on these issues, they almost always choose Trump. And they're just like older voters in that they care a lot about inflation. They care a lot about the economy in general. They care a lot about illegal immigration. So when Trump is heading into this debate, there's going to be a lot of temptation to give in to Biden's personal attacks. Biden's going to call him a convicted felon. And you know what Trump should do? He should remind young voters and all other voters that Biden just let 8 suspected terrorists across his wide open southern border. Biden's going to go on at length about Trump's role in the January 6th Capitol riot. You want to know what Trump should do? He should remind voters what the economy was like before Biden took office. Keeping a really narrow focus on the issues that voters care about is the best way to make a good standing in this debate.
Look, there's definitely going to be a juxtaposition on the issues, but boy, oh boy, is there going to be a juxtaposition on these two individuals' ability to communicate 1 week from today. Caitlin McGee-White, thank you so much. We appreciate your insight. Carly?
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
Turning to the American soldier sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison in Russia. The charges against Staff Sergeant Gordon Black involved an alleged altercation with his Russian girlfriend. Our chief global affairs correspondent, Martha Raddatz, is tracking the latest for us. Martha, good morning.
Good morning, Whit. The Army Staff Sergeant went to Russia on his own without permission from the military to see his Russian girlfriend, and he is now facing years in prison. This morning, Staff Sergeant Gordon Black, jailed in Russia for over a month, now sentenced to nearly 4 years of hard time in a remote Russian penal colony. Black listening to the verdict from inside a glass cage. The multi-year sentence handed down just 2 days after the trial began.
He looked like he was losing some weight. He looked kind of almost like he was distressed.
I'm PFC Gordon Black.
Staff Sergeant Black was detained in May after traveling from his base in South Korea to Vladivostok, Russia, without permission from the military and without heeding the strong warnings about travel to Russia from the U.S. State Department. Black's parents say he was there to see the Russian girlfriend he met when she was working near his base in South Korea.
And he didn't really want to talk too much about her.
The visit apparently turned sour, the woman claiming she and Black had a domestic dispute and accused him of threatening to kill her and stealing $115. In court, Black said he did take the money, but he denies all other charges. Black's mother, who says she warned him not to go to Russia, now worried about when he can return home.
I feel like part of my heart's been ripped out and it can't be replaced until he comes back.
To the damage at one of the world's most famous historic sites. 2 climate activists have been arrested after spraying orange powder on Stonehenge. Lama Hassan is on the scene for us. Good morning, Lama.
Yeah, good morning to you, Michael. Well, today is one of the most important days in the calendar for Stonehenge, which you can see right behind me because it is the summer solstice when the sun aligns with the stones, with celebrations starting tonight. It is open to the public today, but yesterday it was quite shocking to see those climate activists spray orange powder on some of the stones.
This morning, one of Britain's most famous historical sites covered in orange paint. Watch as 2 climate activists run up to the ancient stones at Stonehenge, spraying fire extinguishers containing orange powder, vandalizing the 5,000-year-old monument. Other visitors rushing to try to stop them. Officers arriving on the scene, arresting the pair on suspicion of damaging the ancient monument.
I think it's pretty awful. I think there are better ways to protest, and I don't think damaging a historic site is the way to do it.
The activists from Just Stop Oil, known for their high-profile protests, previously making headlines for throwing tomato soup on Van Gogh's sunflowers in 2022, demanding the incoming British government end fossil fuel usage by 2030. The protest group claiming the paint was made of cornstarch, which will wash away in the rain. But experts say that's not necessarily true, that the ancient stones are porous and the cornstarch could have leached into the monoliths.
I think the assumption is it's not going to damage because, oh, they're giant stones and they're outside and they've been here for thousands and thousands of years. But that's a leap of faith, and I don't think it's one that can be guaranteed.
Well, English Heritage telling us that.
So Louisiana, as of tonight, is now the first state to require the 10 Commandments to be displayed in every public school classroom in the state after the governor signed this controversial bill into law. And it gets pretty specific, saying the commandments have to be on a poster-sized display with font that's easy to read. The governor seems to be spoiling for the legal fight here, and it looks like he will get it, with a bunch of civil liberties groups, including the ACLU, saying in just the last couple of hours, wait a second, this is not constitutional, and that they're planning to sue. Vaughn Hilliard is joining us now with more.
Right, Hallie. Look, we have seen some of these conservative states go and challenge what has previously been decided by the U.S. Supreme Court. In this situation, back in 1980, the U.S. Supreme Court, they ruled against a Kentucky measure that would have required public classrooms to have the 10 Commandments inside of the classrooms. And yet 45 years have passed. It is a different Supreme Court with a conservative lean to it. And the conservative legislature and Republican Governor Landry, who signed this measure into law, made the conscious decision that they're going to go and try to challenge that. Now, the ACLU, to note, and other organizations have already indicated that they intend to file a lawsuit in which they say, in part, quote, the law violates the separation of church and state and is blatantly unconstitutional. Politicians have no business imposing their preferred religious doctrine on students and families in public schools. So we've seen other Republican states consider this type of measure here, but they haven't gone forward with it, knowing that it would face a legal lawsuit. But for now.